بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله مالك الملك مجري الفلك مسخر الرياح فالق الإصباح ديان الدين رب العالمين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أمين الله على وحيه وعزائم أمره الخاتم لما سبق والفاتح لما استقبل والمهيمن على ذلك كله وعلى أهل بيته شجرة النبوة وموضع الرسالة ومختلف الملائكة ومعدن العلم وأهل بيت الوحي. صلى الله عليك يا مولاي يا رسول الله، صلى الله عليك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله يا عزيز الزهراء، أيها الغريب أيها العطشان أيها السليم بأرض كربلاء يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة، يا ليتنا كنا معكم فنفوز فوزا عظيما. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states in the Holy Quran, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Wal 'asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa 'amilus salihat wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Please enlighten this majlis with a loud salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. What is it that, despite our deep faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we still always fall short in performing our obligations? We believe in Him, we read the commandments, we know this is the right way, but when the alarm sets off, I find it difficult to stand up and perform my prayers, for example. I find it a bit difficult to give. I find it a bit difficult to attend, to participate and whatnot. You see, my dear brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us with a nature that is considered natural to the human being. And sometimes when a mind shift happens, we start struggling in that, let's call it, domain of performance. So a discord happens between my faith, my system of belief, and between the outer world, my actions, my applications, if you wish to call it. And hence, inshallah ta'ala, today we want to bridge the gap, if you wish to call, between what we believe in and between our day-to-day actions, especially when it comes to things that should be aligning very well with what we believe in. Okay. Things are natural. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us to be always committed to our purpose. It's very natural to be always in a quest to fulfilling the obligation, the very purpose that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us for in this life. And the very opposite is not natural for us to be lazy. It's not natural for us to kind of not work and not, if you will, tread that path towards implementing the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to do. And hence that discord. Now you have if you will, a broken bridge between my faith and between the actions. And for the mu'min, and I want you to underline that, for the person who has genuine faith, he will start to develop a crisis within. Because the mind doesn't want you to believe in one thing and not act upon it. Subhanallah. Why? Because it's the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He created the mind in a way that whatever you believe, the mindset have to work in tandem with your lifestyle, if you wish to call it this way. They have to kind of tread the same path. There shouldn't be a discord between them. So if you don't perform that which you believe in, your brain says, okay, you're not putting me at ease. You got to figure this out. Either you let go of the faith or you let go of the amal, the actions. And that's a dilemma, that's a big action, big issue if you wish to call. So inshallah ta'ala, today we want to look deep into that and perhaps share some practical steps. And remember, it's always about the mindset. It's about shifting things in your head, introducing new ideas, introducing new thoughts, right? Sometimes that could motivate you. That could give you the reason onto implementing your faith step by step, inshallah ta'ala. That dilemma caused some people to kind of go through a fallacy. And that fallacy is that, why is it an issue for me to have faith in my heart but not perform? And the argument goes like this: Sheikhna, isn't it better to perform good actions, to be generous, to do good, right? To motivate others, to put a sadaqah, to give charity? Isn't that good? But have faith in my heart? Or do you want me to have faith, but I go out in the majlis and gossip, for example, and do ghiba? Is that better? Or sometimes they use the analogy of the hijab. Sheikhna, which is better? To have faith and not wear hijab, or wear hijab and not have faith? That's a fallacy. Okay? Whoever's presenting that, he's doing a good job. I attest to that. But again, stop, tell him. What you're doing here is you're manipulating my mind. This is called, if you want to search it up, that's the dichotomy fallacy. You're trying to make it look as if there's only two options, and you're trying to make it look like those two statements are exclusively mutual. They're not. Rather, there's a best option. There's the optimal options that he's trying to not let you look at it as if there's only two possibilities. Let me give you an analogy. Let's say a new restaurant opens in the town. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. You and the gang, late night, you want to grab something to eat. And then you look at the menu, and you see those two options, okay? The first option is, let's say, a burger. But it says the patty, the meat on the burger, is halal, but the bun is made of ingredients which are not halal. Option number one. Option number two is the following. Now, the patty is actually not halal, but the bun is halal. Which one would you choose? Now, the person who falls to this, he will say, okay, let me at least eat that, the halal burger, and then I'll do some not haram in the patty, right? This is exactly what's going on here. They're not letting us see the correct option. If you just turn to the left, you're going to see a third option that says there's the halal patty and the halal bun. So again, back, if you want to apply this to the idea of faith versus work, this is a aqeedah issue, if you will. Iman versus works. And not confined to Islam. Iman versus work, faith versus works. Even Christianity discussed it. Even Judaism discussed it, right? They have an issue. They have an issue between whether your actions really count or not, or is it only the faith that counts in the heart, right? So it's if you will, a theology matter that people, high-ranking scholars discuss in academia, seminaries, and whatnot. Okay? The right option, according to Islam, is that your faith has to work very well with your actions. The moment you believe that sadaqah is good, it shouldn't be an issue to pull out that change and put it in your sadaqah box. It shouldn't be an issue. But rather, sometimes the issue has to do with our faith. And here, let me tell you something. Iman is a gradational process. It has levels. So you have some Iman, right? It's not like a binary, a 1 and a 0. Either you have Iman or you're out of Iman or you're excluded. It's not that. You can have an entry level, you can have an intermediate level of Iman, right? And that level is reflected by your actions, right? So know more about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, know more about what He wants from you, right? And then observe, subhanAllah, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created this system of Iman that works very well with your operating system, let me call it, if you allow me. It works in tandem, right? So Iman, if you will, and Amal have to be, they come in hand. And your actions should be a reflection of your Iman. Mawlana Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib, alayhi afdal salati wa salam, he says, بِالْإِيمَانِ يُسْتَدَلُّ عَلَى الصَّالِحَاتِ. Through Iman, okay, or Iman presents or becomes the evidence of your righteous and good deeds. And then he continues a beautiful statement as well. And he says, وَبِالصَّالِحَاتِ يُسْتَدَلُّ عَلَى الْإِيمَانِ. And then your actions, your good actions, are also an evidence for the Iman that you have in your heart. Right? Now this dilemma, this issue of Iman versus works, they call it, is not new. Rather, this dates back to some time after the Prophet ﷺ. Because in Christianity, if you will, and this could be new to you, in Christianity, they believe that your actions really have no value. It does not really help you to attain salvation, according to Apostle Paul, if you will. It does not have any worth. Rather, what has worth is your faith. It's Jesus who's, if you will, casting you and putting that salvation in your heart. He's the one who's taking you towards salvation. So you cannot boast about it. So whoever wants to do good, that's good for you, but you don't boast about it. Your a'mal, your actions are not earning you anything. That philosophy, if you will, sneaked into Islam. Back in the time, if you wish, of Muawiyah. After Mawlana Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib, a denomination emerged into Islam. It is called Al-Murji'ah. Those people exactly believe what Christianity just presented. They say your actions have no value. Rather, what has value is your Iman in the heart. Right? And then they quote ayat from the Quran. Right in that same time, we have another denomination, another sect called Qadariyah. Qadariyah, ajib. It's just as absurd as the first denomination. They believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created everything, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted that to happen. So the bad which is happening in the world, that's but a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you have to accept it. Do you know what's the common denominator between those two sects? If you just really reflect upon them. Okay? Reflect upon them. The first denomination says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will hold you accountable, won't hold you accountable for your actions. And the second they're saying that the actions are made by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even the bad, He's responsible about it. Right? Both of them are trying not to take responsibilities of their actions. They just want to, if you will, escape the accountability when it comes to their performance. Subhanallah. And hence Mawlana Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, he says, صِنْفَانْ لَيْسَ لَهُمَا نَصِيبٌ فِي الْإِسْلَامِ الْمُرْجِئَةُ وَالْقَدَرِيَّةُ. Those two denominations are not part of Islam. Rather, your actions, you will be held accountable about it. Quran says, يَوْمَ تَجِدُ كُلُّ نَفْسٍ, right? مَا عَمِلَتْ مِنْ خَيْرٍ مُحْضَرًا. That khair that you do, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put it, will weigh. In fact, in Surah Al-Zilzala, that little speck that you do of good, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will write it down. And you will see it, not just you will see its consequences. So he says, لَيْسَ لَهُمَا نَصِيبٌ فِي الْإِسْلَامِ. But again, what they presented is, I wish to call, appealing. Huh? They're trying to tell you that your actions don't matter. It's just the iman in your qalb. Your hijab doesn't matter. It's the iman in your qalb. Right? Giving is not that issue. If you don't want to give, that's fine. Right? Engaging in activities that bring you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will hold you accountable for it. It's just that iman in your qalb. And a lot of us get manipulated and we accept that. Subhanallah. And hence Mawlana al-Imam al-Sadiq alayhi afdal salati wa salam, he puts a legendary line there. He says, بَادِرُوا أَوْلَادَكُمْ قَبْلَ أَن تَسْبِقُكُمْ إِلَيْهِمِ الْمُرْجِئَةِ. Again, he speaks about this. I want to call them creative. I want to really say that. Because again, what they're presenting, the product they're bringing to the market is appealing. Iman in the qalb, don't worry about your actions. Right? So here Imam says, Badiru, meaning take precedent. Go and open up with your children and talk to them about the issues and society issues and whatnot. Be frank about it. Why? Because he says, before they do. Meaning that it's just a matter of what? Of time. And someone will talk to them about it. Someone will address issues with your children. So it's either you take precedent or you will come late. Imam Sadiq says, go do it. Take precedent. Address issues with them. Right? Nowadays, we think, subhanAllah, children are creative, to be honest with you. They're smart. They make you think they don't know anything. Huh? 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade. They make you look that they are, sorry to use the word dumb, but they know it all. They know exactly what's going on there. And if you want to look at it from a statistics side, they are exposed to things that me and you don't want them to know about. Things that we think almost certain that they don't know about. They got 90% according to the statistics. 90% of children in grade 5, they are exposed to bad content on the internet. Please go look it up. When is the time going to come so I can address things with them? When will the time come where I can sit him down and talk to him and give him a drill, tell him about what to do if you see bad content on the internet? Until he's in grade 11 or grade 12, the time I really kind of, I'm certain now that he is exposed and he's engaged in illicit activities and whatnot, that's when I go and seek help. When it's seemingly a bit too late. Let's walk it. Let's follow Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam. Sit him down, talk to him, tell him there's issue, there's bad people out there, right? And tell him there are things, you will see it, and believe me, they know about it. Again, I don't want to tell you what age and what not, because every case is unique. You know your children, but this is a humble advice from a father. From a father. So at least give them a tool, what to do if you see something wrong, right? Tell them the moment you see something wrong, you should right away get it out of your eyes. Right away, subhanAllah, and this aligns very well with psychology, very well. Number one, what you have to do is, according to Nabiullah Yusuf, ala nabiyina wa alayhi afdal salati wa salam, he lowered his gaze when he saw something indecent. When Zulaykha entered into the room, he shut off the system. basically he turned off the laptop. He closed the screen, if you wish to call it. This is what he did. He turned off the screen. You need to take it off your system. That's number one. Number two is you need to now resort to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A very beautiful ayah. A'udhu billahi min ash-shaytan ar-rajim. A'udhu billahi min ash-shaytan. Meaning what? Meaning that I seek refuge in Allah from this shaitan. Right? Now tell your children, tell them now Allah's on your side. When you say A'udhu Billah, meaning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is working with you now. Right? This shaitan that you're seeing in front of you, I know he's powerful, I know he has tricks and whatnot, he can manipulate you, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is on your side. He can aid you, he can assist you. Right? So again, بَادِرُ أَوْلَادُكُمْ قَبْلَ أَن تَسْبِقَكُمْ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ مُرْجَةٍ. That's very important. Remember your actions also. Those are proofs. Maulana Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, he says, Al-amalu bayyinatul iman. Meaning the proof, the evidence of your iman that you have in your heart is what? Your actions. What you present, the goods that you're bringing into society, those are the evidence of your iman that you have in your heart. Right? A man comes to Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, and he tells him those murji'ah presented a very tricky argument that I wasn't able to answer. Can you teach me, ya Imam? He says, what is this argument? He said, they say that the kafir, when he confesses that he's a kafir in this life, we consider him a kafir. Is that true? Yeah. When someone comes and says he's a kafir, then we have to kind of treat him as a kafir, right? Because he said it. And then the murji'ah says, okay, based on that logic, based on that rationale, then we have to also treat a person who says he's a mu'min as a mu'min. We don't have to look at his actions. Do you go and ask a kafir about his actions? Do you ask him for proof that he's a kafir, so now you can consider him a kafir? So Al-Imam alayhi salatu wasalam says, Ajib, this is the way that they're, if you will, making sense for things. And he says there's a huge difference. And subhanAllah, look at the way that Imam alayhi salatu wasalam, he kind of defies this argument. He says there's a huge difference between someone who comes to confess and between someone who claims. Usually when someone comes and claims that he has something, right, or he owns something, you should ask for evidence. But when someone confesses that he is wrong, there's no need for evidence. And then he says, وَبَيِّنَةُ الْإِيمَانَ الْعَمَلِ. The evidence for your iman, for claiming that you're a mu'min, is to bring out the goods. Show me that you are a mu'min. Right? Let me fast forward so we don't take much of your time. Then what is it? If I do have some iman, what's going on? Right? Now this is a very big topic, but what I want to bring to the picture now is something that I personally experience with many of our youth. When I come to ask them about why are you not able to stand up to salah when the alarm sets off? Why are you not able to engage and whatnot? It all boils down to an idea, ajib. It's an idea of not being motivated. And here I present to you kasal, laziness. We're lazy to stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We do believe in Him, but I don't have the power, right? Lethargicness, if you will. I cannot, and hence Maulana al-Imam Sadiq alayhi afdal salatu wasalam, he says, Iyyakum wal kasal. Iyyakum, be aware of laziness. فَإِنَّهُ مِفْتَاحُ كُلِّ شَرٍ. It's that key for every single bad and evil that happens in this life. And Maulana Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he has very beautiful du'as asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to aid him against laziness. Allahumma mnun alayna bin nashat, he says. Oh Allah, endow me with what? With energy, with motivation, Ya Allah. Simply sometimes is what missing is motivation. I want to do it, but I don't want to drive to the mosque, for example. I don't want to answer the call. I don't want to pay. It's just because I don't have the energy for it. Allahu Akbar. And hence why Mawlana al-Imam Zainul Abidin Sallu ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. He has a beautiful dua. If you want to, those who are taking notes, this is a dua that perhaps maybe include in your qunut. Al-Imam alayhi afdal salatu wasalam, he says, Allahumma habbib ilayya ma tuhibba min al-qawli wal-amal, أو ما تحب من القول والعمل حتى أدخل فيه بلذة وأخرج منه بنشاط. Allahu Akbar. O Allah, make beloved to me that which you love of actions and iman, so I can engage in that amal with what? With energy, he says, with pleasure, with lidda, enthusiasm, if you will. وَأَخْرُجَ مِنْهُ بِنَشَاط. And so I can come out of it also energized, Ya Allah. When I was reading, remember this hadith by Imam Sadiq alayhi إِيَاكُمْ وَالْكَسَلْ, be aware of laziness. This was narrated in Kitab Muntaha al-Amal, Sheik Abbas al-Qummi, the same author of Mafatih al-Jinan. There he puts a very beautiful story, and I wish to narrate that for you. A little anecdote. He mentions one of the ulama, high-ranking scholars, where people came to him as students. They told him, Maulana, what is the secret behind your high-ranking ilm and whatnot? Can you share that? He says he kind of wanted to escape answering them and stuff. They insisted on it. And he says, my teacher, right, my motivation was a beetle, an insect. And here, Al-Allama Sheikh Abbas al-Qummi, he said, they started mocking him, calling him that scholar Abul Khunfusa, the beetle scholar. So what's the story behind the beetle? He says, one day, I wanted to pray Salat al-Subh. I was kind of revising some of my material before Salat al-Subh. I had a lantern on. And that lantern was placed on a ledge. He says, while I was revising the material, I saw a beetle. Usually beetles, they get attracted to light. They want to come close to the source of the light. He said, I saw a beetle wanting to climb the ledge so it could get closer to the lantern. So it caught my attention, and I kept looking at it. So this beetle would come close to the ledge, and then it would slip. Come close to the ledge, slip. He said, I kept counting how many times. When will this beetle give up? He said, I kept counting and counting and counting. He says, when the adhan called, I have counted 700 times. I went, prayed, I came back, and I found the beetle right beside the lantern. So he told his students, all what I was missing is a beetle to teach me a lesson of dedication and resolve. Shabab, repetition. Here I want to present to you 3, if you will, practical mindset. 2 of them has to do with your mindset, things that you have to change in your mind, and 1 practical thing. I cannot stress more on repetition. Let that beetle change your life, if you will. Don't give up. Islam teaches us the mindset of the can-do mentality. You can do it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that I have trust in you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that Ubahi bihil malaika, the person who stands up in the middle of the night, leaving the luxury of sleep, leaving the comfort of your beautiful, expensive mattress, standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, build a habit of it. And start slowly, my humble advice. Don't go full. Don't go full in Salatul Layl. Here's a beautiful advice. Set the alarm, wake up, and say the following. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Salli ala Muhammad. Go back to sleep. Yeah? Yes, go back to sleep. But next day, add something else. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajjil farajahu, for example. The next week, when you start building momentum and turning this into a habit, that's when you stand and do wudu. And keep on that, just wudu, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Muhammad wa ajjil farajah. Third week, maybe fourth week, that's when you take it a step up. And when you stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praying one ruk'ah, without the mustahabbat, without the afu, without the tasbih, without the istighfar, just one single ruk'ah to Allah. Do it slowly and surely. This is the advice of the marhum Sheikh Hussein al-Qurani rahmatullahi alayhi. A person of high-ranking adab, a person who can teach you how to engage with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rahmatullahi alayhi. So slowly, surely, gradually, and then you will start. And then, according to Imam Zain al-Abidin, you start to building this pleasure when you speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But again, back to the idea of repetition. Don't give up. Again and again, right? And according to ulama, this stick, you bring it close to the fire. At the very beginning, what happens? It will start to gain some of the characteristics of the fire. Does it catch fire right away? No. It will firstly maybe become black, some of the ashes and whatnot, right? The smoke turns it black. And then it will gain some of the heat. You bring it back, you bring it out of the fire, it loses all the characteristics. You go back to the natural state. Bring it back to the fire. You see repetition? Bring it back to the fire until the moment it catches a bit of a spark of fire, if you will. Pull it back, it loses the fire. Put it again back in the fire until the moment where that stick turns into fire. It turns into a source of fire, if you wish to call it. Like, number two that I want, this has to do with the practical side. If you will, the humble advice that I want you to change in your mindset is to remember that the power of intention in Islam is extremely important. When you come to embark on something, a new habit that you want to do, remember, qurbatan ilallahi ta'ala. That word that we just utter as just a bunch of letters, look into it deep. Qurbatan ilallah, meaning that amal that I'm doing is getting me closer to Allah. That amal is close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do you know how close that amal can get to Allah? It could get very much close that it will be considered and attributed to Allah Jalla wa Ala. I want your utmost attention in this point. This is part of Tawheed. This is part of Tawheed, Shabbat. Your a'mal are created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Everything. According to Shia, the 12 verse Imamiyya, we believe all our actions are created by Allah Jalla wa Ala. كل الأعمال خلق الله. Every action we do, إنما يدرككم الموت, the ayah says, ولو كنتم في بروج مشيدة. Right? وإن تصبهم حسنة يقول هذه من عند الله وإن تصبهم سيئة يقول هذه من عندك قل كل من عند الله. This ayah constitutes the following. It says that some of people say that when something bad, when I do something bad, I say this is me. But when I do something good, I say this is Allah's. No, Allah says قل كل من عند الله. Everything is created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But again, the issue here is that those bad things that you do cannot be attributed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, simply because He didn't want you to do it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is called the vertical creation, right? The vertical relation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah at the very helm created insan, gave you the abilities, gave you physical abilities, cognitive abilities, right? He gave you all the package. So you can do what? So you can do good. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made that very clear. أيكم أحسن عملا الذي خلق الموت والحياة. To do what? He created this life and death. ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا. So He can put you to a test and see who can do the best, to perform the best. So when you perform the best according to that creation, we're going back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the amal is amalullah jalla wa ala. And this should give you motivation. This should give you swagger, shabab, mu'mineen, mu'minat. This is what happened in Ma'arakat Uhud. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the Prophet that what you're doing is me doing it through you. وَمَا رَمَيْتَ إِذْ رَمَيْتَ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ رَمَى. This is not you, Ya Rasulullah. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala working miracles through you. And we can do the same. The moment we do itqanul amal and align that with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants, right? With the right intention, qurbatan ila Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is Allah's action. Let me give you a quick analogy. A quick analogy. This is, if you will, this is studied in Hawza, right? They say the following. Let's say there's a good doctor out there. He creates a device that could revive a dead hand. Someone who has a disabled hand. And this genius doctor, he creates this device that could bring life back to the hand, right? But again, he talks to the patient, and he tells him that I exerted much effort. I put a lot of, if you will, attention, okay, and resources into that device. But I want you to use, now once your hand gets back to life and gets revived, I want you to use this hand for good purposes. And he presents the device to his patients. He hooks it on, his hand is back. This smart person goes grab a knife and he hurts someone. He injures someone with this hand which is operating through the device created by the doctor. Now here's two questions. Can we say that we can blame the doctor for that injury? I don't think so, right? Why? Because he told him do not use it in wrongdoings. Use it in good purposes. So I cannot come and blame the doctor. But, and this is what I want you to underline, can we give credit to the doctor if he does good? Of course we can. And that analogy applies to our a'mal and relation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah cannot take credit. He's not responsible about the wrongdoings we do. But because He gave us the ability, both physically and intellectually, right? He's the one who created everything, if you will, right? From A to Z, then yes, He can get credit. And this should give you swagger now when you do that which is good. This should give you, if you will, motivation that what I'm doing now is Allah's. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing that. This should give you haybah. Now you shouldn't be hesitant when you pray. You should be hesitant when you give. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Imagine you work in this very important company, and then one day the CEO comes and asks you by name. He wants to meet with you, right? And again, given that the CEO is a very humble mu'min, let's call him, right? A good CEO. And he tells you, I want to work with you. I want to delegate a task with you, a task to you. And we want to work together, right? You would feel proud. Now you're not working with this so-and-so supervisor. You're just working directly with the CEO, right? Now you're going to brag about it. You're going to boast about it in front of everyone. That applies to us when we do good in this life. Remember that good that you're doing, this amal, this obligation, this salah, this sadaqah, right? This islah, this good word that you leave out there, shabab, Allahu Akbar. That one good word that you if you will, that could cause motivation to your friends and whatnot. This is Allah's doing it. Yani that's you and Allah. He's working through you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing that magic through the instrument, which is this human being, you. This should give you swagger. And then at the very end of this, and I shall end inshaAllah ta'ala, is that we need to remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us to operate through habits. 90% of what we do is a habit. What is a habit? A habit usually takes a bit of stress off of the mind and makes your subconscious operate. All your ashghal, your a'mal, right? At the very beginning, you use your consciousness to understand it, right? The amal. But at the end of it, the subconscious kicks in and he takes over. 90% of what we do are habits. So what I want to do is I want to turn those a'mal that we do into habits. Okay? I don't have much time to expand on it, but again, the power of habits. Charles Duhigg, he puts it's a masterpiece, a quick read, a very nice read. He explains the atomy, if you will, the philosophy, if you will, the psychology behind the habit. How can you make a habit? Simply 3 steps. Every habit that we do has 3 steps. A beginning, a middle, and an end. A cue, he calls it, and then the structure of the habit, and at the very end is the reward. The adrenaline that kicks in. A reward is what? Is adrenaline being spiked in your body, in your bloodstream. A cue is that what starts the habit. Something is triggering the brain and telling him that this is the time to engage in that certain habit. And then naturally your subconscious pushes you into that habit. Good or bad, huh? Good or bad. Then suddenly you're into that habit, into implementing that amal. And at the very end, adrenaline is spiked in your blood. Reward. So what I want to tell you is that, again, look into it more and more. But simply, any good habit you want to do, any good amal that you want to encourage yourself in doing, try to put a beginning to it, a cue, right? Something that tells you, okay, now this is the time to do it. Mathalan, the call of the adhan, right? The moment the adhan calls in, try to understand that this is a trigger to do a habit. And that kicks you in salah, mathalan, connecting to salah. But at the very end, what you want to do is reward yourself. Reward yourself. Yes, whatever it is. Give yourself some free time. Give yourself some screen. Watch something that you like. Eat something that you like. Yani, what I'm trying to say, reward meaning that let the adrenaline move into your bloodstream. A bit of it, just a bit of it. Because the moment now the adrenaline kicks in, that means, okay, the aql, the brain, subhanAllah, understands that this is a habit that I need to cling on. Okay? So again, I urge you to go and read that book and turn those good things into habit, inshaAllah ta'ala. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The very verse we started at the beginning, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Wal asr. Inna al-insana lafi khusr. He swears by time, right? And he says, insan is in continuous loss, except illa alladhina amanu, iman that we spoke about, wa amilu salihat, and those who do good. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Take your hearts now not to Karbala, not to Medina. Now we want to empathize with a person who did not attend Karbala, but he was able to change. He was able to change and shift the trajectory of Karbala. And this is an evidence for us that even though we, subhanAllah, didn't have or weren't there to participate in Karbala, but you can also, according to Maulana, the very cousin of the Imam alayhi afdal salatu wassalam, the emissary, the ambassador of Sayyid al-Shuhada, Muslim ibn Aqil alayhi afdal salatu wassalam, we can participate in Karbala. This brave warrior, this commander sent by Maulana al-Hussein alayhi afdal salatu wassalam was sent to Kufa so he can mobilize the armies and get people ready. But subhanallah, those enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they turn against him. Allahu Akbar. Maulana Muslim ibn Aqil prays in the mosque of Kufa with thousands of people praying behind him. But the moment he ends his salah, only few are left. He kept wandering alone in the alleyways of Kufa, not knowing where to go, until narration says he stops at a house where a lady was standing there. She tells him, "Oh stranger, what are you doing in front of my house?" He replies back, "يقل الهوى أنا مستديرة أنا لا أهل عندي ولا عشيرة." When she told him, "Go back to your family, He says, when he's overwhelmed, I do not have a family in Kufa. Who are you then? Ana Muslim ibn Aqil. Oh my master, I did not know that you are related to the Prophet. You are the nephew of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. She accepts him. She accommodates Muslim ibn Aqil. But right in that morning, this enemy of Allah, Ibn Ziyad, he mobilizes an army to go and capture Mawlana Muslim ibn Aqil. He engages in a fight. He defends his Hussein alayhi salam. But in a moment of despair, when they all surround Muslim ibn Aqil, one hits him with a sword and one pokes him with a spear. They also started to hurl rocks on Mawlana Muslim ibn Aqil until this enemy of Allah struck him on his face, hitting his upper lip. He turns to Hussein and he says, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah, as if he's telling him, don't come ya Hussein to Kufa. They shackle Muslim ibn Aqil. They drag him up to the palace. And then at that moment, Allahu Akbar, they push Mawlana Muslim ibn Aqil from the top of the palace. Sallallahu alayka ya Mawlaya ya سفير الحسين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد يا الله 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 يا رحمن يا رحيم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج واجعلنا من أنصاره وأعوانه والذابين عنه والمستشهدين بين يديه يا أرحم الراحمين. نهدي ثواب ما قرأناه إلى أرواح شيعة أمير المؤمنين، نهدي لهم ثواب المباركة الفاتحة قبلها الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.